Hey everyone, what's going on? My name is Jimmy Wisenhunt. I work over at Twitch with artists in the music department, and want to thank you all for tuning in for this particular conversation. I've got a very exciting guest, someone that I myself have spent a good portion of my life listening to, and incredibly excited to dive in on a bunch of different topics. But kicking off with some Twitch specific things. The guest today is Mike Shinoda. Mike, how you doing?
Hi. Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm surviving. I know I've got a 2-year-old running around, so I guess I should probably also, just like our first meeting, remind everyone watching, if you hear screaming, we're all okay, at least on my end. It's just a 2-year-old trying to not go to bed. So I know we've got about 30 minutes for the first portion of this, and I think the last several times we talked, we went over on time off camera. So I've only got a few questions, and I really want to dive in on. And the first thing I want to dive in on is, you starting to stream. So when we first talked, I think you had started to really think about how and why you were going to connect with fans and how you were going to chat with them in different spaces. Like, what spurred that? What were some of the challenges? Did you notice any differences in different places that you had started streaming? Just generally curious.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it was just the idea was just. At first, I was just trying to make stuff and share it with fans, and I think I had I was missing some of the community that I was used to, like artists and fan community, but also like friends, just being able to hang out with people and stuff. And quarantine was, I'm sure for all of us, it was really weird and different when it first started, and we all went to different things. I went to Twitch. I tested out streaming on a few different platforms, and then ended up on Twitch because I really enjoyed the community there. It felt really positive. And I found that the more I looked around on Twitch, I realized I do certain things naturally that other streamers weren't doing. So I started streaming. Now I stream 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. LA time each weekday, and I make something new from scratch. And usually that's a song, but sometimes it's art. Sometimes it's this lately has been VR too. But it's really fun. It's part of it's, like I said, community, and part of it's just like scratching this creative itch.
Right. Well, I mean, as a part of a lot of what you've been doing, I think fans have been really stoked. I was gonna actually dive in on this a little bit later, but just seeing how you've decided to make music effectively with fans and live and letting them in on this process, was that super natural for you? I don't think I've actually asked you that before. Was it hard to just really bear it all as you're trying to make music and instrumentals with and for fans?
Somebody asked me about that the other day, because I just posted unrelated or barely related to Twitch. I posted a remix contest, and somebody was asking me, "Oh, have you ever done a remix contest with fans before?" And I was remembering back, as far back as maybe 10 years ago, we had a contest with Linkin Park where we gave the fans miscellaneous stems to a song that hadn't been released, that they had never heard. It ended up being The Catalyst, our first single off the record. So we gave them these pieces of the song and said, assemble these any way you want, and whoever wins, whoever's entry we like the best, we're going to put you on our album. We're going to put you're going to participate and be a collaborator on the record, which we did. And I just say that to remind myself, in a sense, that there have been versions of this for a really long time in my experience with the fans and our trajectory as a band, and things I do on my own personally. And Twitch is, at this point, live streaming and Twitch have been a really good fit for me. I really enjoy, one thing that we do on my channel is fans, by being there, they earn loyalty points, which we call Shinoda bucks. And for their Shinoda bucks, they can redeem those for a question. They can redeem those for a suggestion of a thing for me to draw. They can also redeem them for a style. I'll actually grab the bowl right here for a style of music, and I'll write their suggestions down on a piece of paper, and I'll put them in the bowl, and then it's my job to basically randomly pick those and mash them up. So I've had Michael Jackson pop, I've had melodic metal, I've had a song in the style of the Pokemon Mew. I've had video game themes and country and Bulgarian folk music. I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah, no, I mean that's kind of like I would imagine stepping into doing a lot of this live, it's maybe a little scary. Like, did anything surprise you about first starting to let more control be in the hands of people who were watching? Like, was it all? Was it just natural? Was there anything shocking? What surprised you about starting to stream on Twitch and creating that music with them?
Well, I remember the thing that was the most like that I had to get over, that I think most people when they start streaming have to like wrap their heads around, is just the idea that accidents can happen, that you'll be in the middle of a stream, as like you could have tech issues, you may have to restart, you could have a light go out, you could trip and fall and break your arm, like who knows what's going to happen. And we just roll with those. Like I had in the first batch of songs that I made, one of the suggestions from a fan was a song in the style of Panic at the Disco. And it was just a complete airball. Like I tried to do it and it sucked. It was just terrible. And by the end of the stream, I was like, you know what, you guys, I hate this song. And I was like, I don't know if any of you like it, but I can't stand it. And I started making something just to lighten the mood, to like make myself feel better. And ended up making a really ridiculous, like basically like Miami bass dance song using random samples from my hard drive. And the song ended up being called Booty Down. It sounds like an 80s, like, I don't know, 80s or 90s like dance track. And it's so stupid. And it's like something I never would have made, but it's a fan favorite because it came from that like moment of complete like failure and laughing. And we were just having, I mean, like, as you know, like so much of this stuff is like, it ends up being just inside jokes and screwing around, which is, I mean, that's a great part of my day.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, you hit a couple of things there that I always try to explain to people when they first start live streaming, no matter what they're doing or where it is that like, it's not about how to prevent something going wrong while you're live streaming. It's about just being ready for it. Cause like something is going to go wild. Like whether it's like what you're intending to do, you're playing a game, you're creating music, you're skateboarding, it doesn't matter. Something's going to go wrong. It's just a matter of like rolling with the punches. And you've handled that incredibly well, especially given the fact that you're now releasing full on volumes of music that you've created with the audience. I mean, like, could you talk a little bit about that for those that may not already know, and like what that process looks like?
Yeah, sure. So we ended up calling them drop frames. My internet connection, it was potato internet. My internet connection originally was just like, it was absurd. It was so bad. And luckily I've fixed that to some degree. So I'm not like the stream isn't completely dropping out at different points, but seemed like an appropriate name. And I'm on my third volume of it. I don't actually know if I'll go past this one in terms of release. We'll see, because it's like the channel is still ever evolving. In the beginning, I was just making tracks each day on Ableton. And then now I'm like, I'll do GarageBand, I'll do Pro Tools, I'll do Ableton, I'll do In the Box, I'll do live instruments, we'll do VR, we'll play games. I have one redemption in my store. Fans can redeem their Shinoda bucks for me to visit their Animal Crossing island. Like, there's all this stuff. And of course there's chaos and some of it falls apart. And sometimes the fans are I think like one thing that I had to adapt to is that they're going to be like the chat's really vibrant. There's going to be like, they're going to go off on tangents and have their own conversations and like their own inside jokes. And the next thing I know, they've named my chair, like this chair, they've named it Henry. And they're naming stuff in my studio. I'm like, did I get a say in this? Like, you guys are naming my environment, like my home, my studio now. Like, what the hell? It's really funny, and you have to go into it with a sense of humor, which hopefully I usually have.
Well, yeah, I mean, like it's all a part of it. I mean, Another consistent thing that I hope I'm right about. I've never asked you this. I'm really putting myself out on a limb here, but I remember when we first talked about it, we were talking about like what kind of content, which all your idea, like you've always got a million cool ideas and narrowing it in on how you can go about doing cool things with fans. But the chat really can help you figure out what the future of your own content looks like on Twitch. I mean, it's like a two-way conversation. It's not like just a content hub, right? Like it's not just for shows, just for performances. Did you find that that was the case, or so far has the first formula you came up with for your channel stuck true? Like, how do you kind of find that?
Oh, I mean, I think in a bigger, like stepping back further from Twitch and just looking at like online connection with people in general. Like, I think right now is a moment where a lot of us, myself included, are really like starting to get worn out from some of the culture online. Like, it can be really negative. It could be really like, it could be a downer, and it's bad for bad for your mental health. Like going on to a platform and reading it and just being like, wow, I've been here for 20 minutes and I just like read nothing but things that stress me out and make me feel bad. And these people are just name calling with those people. And it's just trash. Like, so for me, I think back to, I heard this said in a bunch of different ways over the years, but somebody told me once, like, imagine if you're sending out a tweet, or you're posting something on Instagram, or you're online on Twitch in this case. Imagine you've got that many people, whatever your followers are. Imagine they're standing in front of you. So what would you say if the human beings of all, ages and races and creeds and types of people are actually standing there? Like, how would you talk to them? And so that's the first thing. And that's a little bit about like how you hold yourself and emotional intelligence and civility. And then beyond that, there's also a question of like, well, okay, if you've got all these people in front of you, like, what are you offering them? Because I feel like a lot of people treat their channels, treat their accounts like a promotional tool, and the whole purpose of it is like, hey, I'm selling widgets. Like these are the things that I sell. If you're following me, then you want to see the earliest information or the cool way to get my stuff, right? And that's true, but if that's the only thing you do, then at the end of the day, I hope people like realize like that's a one-way street. Like for me personally, I'm not in it for that as on the receiving end, and I don't want to be in it for that on the content creator end. Like my stream, if it was all about money, to be completely honest, I would be doing other things. Sure. Right? So I think that it's not. I always tell my fans on the stream, like I want the stream to like pay for itself, or like keep the lights on. But at the end of the day, like this is more about community and having fun and sharing ideas. Like if I'm not providing value to the people who are coming, then what am I doing? Like whether they're just there for some laughs and to have a good time, or they're there to learn about how a song is written, how a song is recorded, learn about software, learn about microphones and like all this, nerdy stuff that I can get into. And if that's what the community wants that day, we'll go deep. Like they'll ask in the chat and I'll answer, and to the best of my ability. And hopefully we learn something.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like that. Yeah. I hope everyone has that experience, like when they start streaming on Twitch. Like when you have a community who's so vocal, like it's always when you're getting started, especially when you already have a following, like you're already an artist, you've got the social media out there, and you're going to have a lot of fans coming in really curious to find out what they're going to see on your channel. Like, are they going to get Mike Shinoda, the person, Mike Shinoda, the artist, Mike Shinoda, the designer and visual artist? Like, what are they going to get out of it? And through conversation, you find out that audience is just as important to the stream as like the person on the camera. And if there's not that like back and forth, they're not asking those questions and driving what's up next on the stream, then like, hey, I could have caught this on TV, or I could have caught this like in another situation.
Oh yeah, they totally surprised me. Like I thought after streaming music for few months, I started polling them about what they wanted to do the next day. And so, I'd throw a couple, and I've gotten, also, you have to be smart about how you poll, because if, for example, if I give 3 options and one of them is art on an iPad, one of them is art in VR, and the other one is music, music is going to win, because it's the only music option. But then if I put 2 music options and 2 art options, then it evens it out, and you see that it, like, the votes spread out a little more. But I learned, by the way, that for my channel, like, when I started asking them, do you want to do music today? Like, or do you want to do Animal Crossing? They're like, let's do Animal Crossing. I was like, I cannot believe you are going to ask me to just sit and play a video game for 3 hours. And that's what you're asking. That's what you want me to do. And then we did a bunch of different stuff. And then it was like, they came back around. They got excited again about the music part, right? They just needed a break or a detour for a few days. And so, yeah, it's definitely like, it's a very vibrant and like ever changing community.
Yeah, I'm curious about something you said. You mentioned, that you can't believe that they want you to sit and play a video game for 3 hours. Does that come with like just generally an expectation of they want you to perform like maybe they are already familiar with, or like that, like where does that come from?
I appreciate the fact that, like, well, when I started streaming, I realized how vibrant and robust the gaming community is on Twitch. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't join earlier, is it was just like, well, yeah, I'm not like, I don't have much to offer in terms of like, if you want to watch somebody kill it on Valorant, then great. Like I will, like, that's somebody else. Right. So, unless I've got aim assist on, and then I'll be a little better. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not good at, that's not my strong suit. So for somebody to come on to my channel and say, will you play this game? It's like, well, yeah, I will, and I'll suck, but like, is that going to be fun for you to watch? And they're like, yes, please. I definitely want to watch you suck at that, at Beat Saber or whatever, So that is part of it. But I also feel like, we balance that with what we know our channel is about. So like, for example, I have rules when as a like looking at it as a streamer, I have a couple rules about my thing. Don't write or really perform vocals on my stream. And the part of the reason is vocals are a slow and meticulous process for me. And I would never want somebody to tune in and see me mumbling to myself for 7 hours. That's crazy. Sure. I prefer, if I'm working on music, I prefer to work in programs where I can let the music keep running. So I use Ableton a lot. Like, I don't want people to tune in and have a lot of start and stop and dead space. So that's another thing. And yeah, other than that, like, I'm also at the same time, I am happy to do things that I've never done before. The fans have been requesting, like, they want me to play Among Us. And I'm like, I've never played Among Us. I know it's popular. It looks super fun. I've seen people play it. Like, maybe I'll jump on and do that. Trying things and for the first time and like completely failing at them is part of the fun of doing it. And it's like an equalizer,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like at the end of the day, I think the most relatable experience, I mean, most of us who have ever played games have done it with, friends or family members in the living room, and watching your cousin lose their mind and break a controller because they suck at a game. Like, that is one of the most relatable things you could ask for. So yeah, like it's a pretty good vehicle to immediately make people realize is like, hey, we all get really, really mad at Among Us when our fellow imposter is terrible at the game or throws us under the bus. Like, that is a universal truth.
Another thing I won't do, by the way, on my channel is fans were asking me to do a song submission where they would submit their work and I would critique it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to, I'm drawing the line. That's another place to draw the line, because I will be honest, and sure, that's not going to end well. I don't want to be the Simon Cowell of Twitch. Like, I don't want to be the guy who's just going to like rip, because I don't want to lie. On one hand, I don't want to lie. And then on the other hand, I couldn't be like that guy. So that's another thing I did. And you figure those things out as you go. I think everybody, if you do those things if you don't create some personal boundaries, and in general, as like a person on social media of whatever kind, like that's, you got to be self-aware. You've got to like look at like what your experience is and the fan experience is, and find the places where it's really working and the places where it's not. Like sometimes you have to say no to stuff that you know that the fans do want, but that either it'll be soul sucking to do, or it will worsen the experience by starting to participate in that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because like that's something that, I mean, you mentioned earlier, and most people know that like we've been a mostly gaming platform for a long time, and I think that carries over to people who maybe come from a certain community in games. Like maybe you're a Counter-Strike player and you do that for a year because that's what people strictly know you for. That's what performs the best in the beginning. You might find yourself in a little bit of this annoying situation where that's all people know you for. So like keeping it super diverse on stream, and letting the audience kind of drive that is always, I think, a good way to look at it. Switching gears for half a second, because it has to be mentioned, we're coming up on the 20th year anniversary campaign for Hybrid Theory. Is that weird to say out loud, or weird to hear? Like, I mean, how I imagine that's gone by pretty quick.
At this point, it's not weird. It's like very, for me, like I when I think back about those times, like so basically for people that don't know, we're releasing our very first like box set, our very first like real collector's package of that album, and in general. Like we've never really released anything like this. Like it's got, I mean, I don't remember how many items in there. It's like 4 CDs or 5 CDs of stuff, and 2 DVDs, and all of this art, and an 80-page book with photos and stories that people haven't heard. I mean, it's a massive package. And one of my favorite things in there is we found all of this. I mean, it wasn't the band. Like the band really didn't do much in putting this thing together. Like I dug through my archives to find some music that people hadn't heard. So there's that in there. And we looked for pictures, but I think I had already shown everybody all the pictures. And then it was like other people, like our drummer Rob's parents found a whole bunch of photos of us from back in the day that we hadn't seen since it existed. One of our other friends found a drive full of video footage, and we made a DVD, a brand new documentary, strictly made from footage at the time. And those like videos and stuff of us, like we didn't know what the band was going to turn into. We didn't know what was happening to us. Like at the time when we made Hybrid Theory, I was working my second job as like a graphic designer. Like the music was a hobby. It was a thing on the weekends that I did. It was the thing I'd spend my paycheck on. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about that. Like I wasn't making I was only spending money doing music. And then all of a sudden we're on the road and we're supporting an album, and we have this footage of us just as babies running around, like learning how to be a band. It's so much fun to watch. I really, I think some people like, there's a certain people have all different versions of nostalgia about it. And I think for me, the one that stands out is just it's really joy driven. It's just such a fun thing to go back and look at that stuff.
Yeah, no, I could imagine, right? Like I actually think the first like media that I owned that wasn't just a CD in relation to a band was the Live in Texas DVDs. I think I got it for a birthday. So like I'm really looking forward to see like what now is related to all of that time as compared to what I owned in high school, and like actually looking at that difference. I'm stoked.
I will tell you that the live footage, part of the stuff that's in there, actually, I think I got it wrong. I think there's 2 live shows in the package. The live show footage at that time was so cringy. It was so embarrassing. I can't believe the things that were coming out of our mouths, the way we were talking, the way we were dressing. Like it sounded like both of us, Chester and I both like sounded like we had accents. And I don't know where the accent came from. It was, I'll tell you what I know it was. Like it's his sound, he sounded like a wrestler. He's like, hey,
Okay.
brother. Like that's what he sounded like on stage. And I was like so hip hop, like, yo, kind of thing going on. And for both of us, I know it was because there was a part of us that was deeply uncomfortable playing for such a big crowd at the time. Like we went from, 100 people to 300 people to 1,000 people to 2,000 to 10,000 so fast. Every single show we played, the next time we came to town, it was like we were the first on the bill and then we were the headliner the very next time. And it happened so fast. So we were just kind of hiding behind all of these put-ons, right? Like
Sure.
the stuff we would wear and the way we talk, everything. And it was all just a defense mechanism to be like, I'm supposed to be the one you came here to see. And I don't know who that guy is. I'm only 22 years old. And I've been like, I was living in an apartment up until now. And I just like let the lease go on my apartment. And now I'm not living anywhere because I'm living in at this point, a tour bus.
On the road, right? When it happens that fast, I can imagine. I mean, like that last part you touched on, I think a lot of people could relate to is just that, I mean, at a much larger scale is, hey, I'm 32 and just in this side of the business, and I still regularly have to remind myself that, hey, yeah, no, I'm not, I'm me. I don't have to be anything else. So that's something a lot of people could relate to. Regarding...
And at the same time too, you I think the you that's in there is like that's whatever fan base you've like that you've met, whoever's come to the thing, like that's the thing they're there for in the first place.
Yeah.
That's like
yeah.
Don't be scared of that guy. Like that, I think that's as over the years I came to terms with that idea that like if there are people that came to see you and then you're acting like you and they go, I don't like that, then say goodbye. Like that's the whole that's beautiful, like amazing, please go away. Like we have I think we have a responsibility to like be ourselves. And even and by the way, like I think when somebody is I think this is an important concept. Like when somebody's version of who they are and what they do differs too much from the fans' version of who they are and what they do, when there's a huge disconnect there, then they've lost it. Like then it doesn't work at all. They'll lose all the fans, or their whole brand or their band or their thing will kind of fall apart, because that's called brand identity, right? Then you have like no brand identity. You think you're that's like back in the day when McDonald's was selling their food as like the food that Olympians ate.
Right.
During Olympics, they'd be like, yeah, and Michael Jordan he eats McDonald's. And you're like, you know what? I don't buy that. And then all of a sudden years later it was, we're the food that they eat when they're watching the Olympics. And you went, yes.
Yeah, the off season maybe. Yeah. That may make a little more sense. Yeah, I'm no nutritionist, but I don't know if I bought that as a kid either. But I just quickly, for anyone watching, shortly after, and actually here in just a few minutes, we're gonna dive into a Q&A from the audience. So submit your questions over at twitch.tv/Brandon Live, twitch.tv/official Mike Shinoda. Both of those, I believe, we're currently looking at questions for. So one more question about hybrid theory. So obviously I think you're very familiar with the fact that like that particular album meant a lot to a lot of people in this generation, and it still has so much cultural relevance now. Is there anything from 20 years ago that still strikes a chord for you from like what came out of that project in general?
I mean, the thing about that time that is, if I'm introducing an alien to that time, the thing to know is that really genres were separated. And I grew up in a time, if you read, I was just reading the Beastie Boys book, and they were describing the cultural landscape when they were becoming a group. And it's really like back then things were very separated. Like all of the different types of music were very separated. and to put them together in a unique way was, I mean, to put them together at all was virtually unheard of, but to put them together in the ways that we were trying to do, nobody had really done it that way. There were a lot of my favorite bands were taking similar attempts at it and doing their own versions, from, like, I grew up listening to like Nine Inch Nails and Rage Against the Machine and Public Enemy and so on. And so people, it was being done. And our feeling was always like, well, yeah, but there's this emotional that I feel like is missing. Like, nobody's really opening them, like ripping their heart open and being like, okay, well, over this type of music, like, I'm really going to tell you about some crazy stuff that's happened to me or some crazy emotions that I feel. And so that's I feel like one thing when I listen back to that album, that's the part that I'm probably most proud of, or more proud of, is that we did a thing and we were able to like kind of etch our names in the wall and be like, okay, yeah, okay, we have a little space. We made a little space for ourselves. It's our space, and there wasn't anything like it. And now, things have evolved, like, from that place. Like, other things spawned from the combination of elements that came after.
No, for sure. Yeah, I definitely, I think that is a perfect way to describe it, right? Like, you're seeing more and more of that these days, and that was the first time I remember hearing it. Well, I appreciate you giving me all the time to sit down and selfishly ask all my questions. I did hear that you got to sit down with a real legend, the one and only Cookie Monster, before this interview, and let's start with that, and then we're going to dive into some audience Q&A, and I haven't even seen this yet.
If you have to rename hip hop, what did it be? I would call it Choco Chippy. What would you call it?
That is probably the toughest question I've ever been asked. But I actually I like your answer. I think I'm going to go with that. Was it Chocolate Chippy?
Yes, it's going to be Choco Chippy. Yeah.
That looked incredible. Was that a bucket list item? Sorry, one more question for me. I'm still going to hog the stage. Bucket list checked off.
Come on. That was so amazing.
I'm gonna dive on over. I'm gonna have to find that video later for my 2-year-old. It's his favorite character in Sesame Street. He's gonna ask me later on. He's like, "Why didn't you talk to Cookie Monster?" A couple questions from the audience. So, Kara from Bandwagon asked, "How do you manage to commit to your Twitch schedule and the requests from those who tune in? Like, how do you manage to kind of fit all that in?"
The strategy on my end was, like, when I first jumped on, I was like, just kind of taking random suggestions and picking people's, to be totally honest, I was like picking people's brains in the chat to like optimize my video settings. I was like, you guys know more about this than me. Somebody please shoot me a whisper and tell me how to do this, because I don't even, like, which broadcasting software should I use? I don't even know. And they were very helpful. And and by the way, shout out to you, Jimmy, because then you showed up in the picture eventually and helped me out some more. So you get credit. But yeah, it's something you have to figure out. And like I said, on my channel, we have a submissions system where people get points for being there, and then you can use those points to ask for things. And two of the least expensive things are like adding a GIF to the store and asking me a question. And they're not cheap. Like, you have to be there for a few days to do those things. But that's the point, is I don't want just the riffraff to run in the door and like be able to just like run the show. You have to be a community member to have that privilege. And that's what in my opinion, keeps the community strong. I'm finally, after like a few months of changing the numbers around, we had a lot of inflation in my store. Questions used to be like a couple hundred Shinoda bucks. Now they're 1,000. Like, it's a lot. Okay. But the point is that, yeah, you have to be, for the people that are there, a few days a week, they're making those points and they're asking the questions. And I reckon at this point, I'm recognizing a lot of names, and I know who's really, participating and who's going to come in with the most ridiculous questions, who's going to come in with the most thoughtful questions. And again, it is just that building of community. It's really tight. It's really fun.
Yeah. So Sammy said, "Hi, Mike. Open Door is an awesome fan collaboration. I wondered, do you encourage your kids to get involved in the process too?" And added a smiley face at the end.
Oh, like my kids.
Yeah, kids.
You know, that's actually, since we were talking about like defining the identity and defining the rules and stuff like that, that's something I had to realize at some point too, is that the boundaries that I'm used to having about what I'll talk about my family, I had to pull that in a little bit. I had to like make it a little tighter, because it's too easy to accidentally say stuff on live streams.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I'm very private, and I believe part of the reason I say that is because I believe that a kid's digital footprint is precious, and anything that you, as a parent, if you start dumping kid information out there on the internet, then you're building their digital footprint for them before they even get a chance to. And all of a sudden they have this online identity that they never had a say in creating. And that's not fair. So
Sure.
This is to say that, like, for me as a parent, that's an example of something, of a place where like there's a real point of view that like informs the way I handle stuff about my kids.
Yeah, no, I just know that I'm going to be bothering you when my kid's old enough to worry about these things, because you seem to have more answers than I do after reading endlessly from experience. So I'm going to harass you on that one. So Steve Tan, I'm sorry, I misread a question here. Oh yeah, no. Steve Tan, happy 10th anniversary to 1,000 Suns. My question, how has fan interaction changed from the days of Linkin Park Underground to Twitch?
Wow. So Linkin Park Underground is our fan club, and it started before we ever released our first album. So we were packing boxes of like cassettes and stickers and t-shirts in Rob's apartment before we ever even got signed. At that time, just to give you a sense of it, my wife was actually my girlfriend, and she would be she often would be running our merchandise table at our show. So we would be playing the Whiskey in Hollywood and opening up First of Three for like System of a Down, and like SX10 was our first show, a band called SX10. It was actually the Send Dog from Cypress Hills rap rock band. And we put out a little like basically like a flyer kind of thing on the merchandise table, and asked people to sign up with either their snail mail address or their email address, and we'd send them like information about the band. And it was 50% snail mail, because 50% of the people signing up didn't have email yet.
Right.
If you can even imagine the ride we've been on, and keeping up with like, oh, there's this new thing called Facebook. Oh, we've got to care about Instagram. We've got to care about Twitch. Like, there's so much, and it's so fast. And I mean, somebody actually pointed that out. They're like, dude, you're playing this last week, Mike, you're playing Beat Saber, a music game in VR where you slash blocks to songs that you wrote in an apartment in 1999. Like,
right.
How weird is that? I mean, we didn't even have like cell phones. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
No, I mean, it is really wild to see how much, I think not even just that, but also like how much it can get involved with developing artists and even major. Like, it's all the same. You more and more things to stay across, to stay in contact with fans. Someone actually asked earlier, I saw it. Danny asked, since when did you realize that building a community of your own is one of the important parts of being a performing artist? So like building your own community and like something you can directly interact with. Like, when did you realize that was such an important part of being an artist?
I mean, that part came naturally. You know, I think it was born out of gratitude and appreciation for people that were enabling us to do what we do. Like, if enough people came to a show, like, we could afford drum heads and guitar strings. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's very straightforward. Now to maintain that kind of gratitude, and to be honest, like any band if a band has been around as long as we have, and they tell you, oh, we've always been this grateful, we've always had this incredible connection that we've got with fans. I think they're fibbing, because I think there are always moments where bands and artists and people who have fan bases, there are moments where you slip and it's all about you for a little bit. And I think one of the great benefits of being in Linkin Park was always that we all had a group of friends that would would correct course. And it wasn't in the kind of way like you wouldn't get into an argument and somebody would say, oh, you're being a jerk, like you're so full of yourself. But we gently like pick at each other. Like we gently nudge each other and make the other person aware, like you're doing a new thing, and the new thing is it's not who you are. Like I know who you are.
New thing become the old thing.
It's not really gonna fly around here. It was a really like valuable asset, and it's probably that element is definitely partially responsible for the fact that the guys do still have like their heads on straight.
Right. No, for sure. So let me find the one I was looking at earlier. It says, hi, Mike. Otep here from the Philippines. My question is, what do you do when you're in a creative drought? Fan of Linkin Park since Hybrid Theory Heart.
Well, I'm never in a creative drought, Jimmy.
Never.
But I wake up in the morning and I have to fend off all of the creative ideas. They're coming at me so quickly. There's a really great Stephen King book that my wife recommends to everybody, and I have not read. And and the reason I haven't read it is it's generally for writers. It's called On Writing. And one of the things that he suggests that I do remember, and I never forget, is he makes a schedule out of writing whether he likes it or not. And he sits down every day. There's also, in related news, there is an author named Elizabeth Gilbert who she often talks, doing TED Talks and that type of stuff about the creative process and how, I don't know if she used this metaphor, but I will. It's like fishing. Like you're only going to catch something if you've got your line in the water. You can show up and it could suck that day and you could feel like crap and you don't really have the whatever it is that you need to get the job done. But that may feel discouraging, but at the end of the day, you've got to show the more you show up, the more you sit down in that seat or sit down on the drums or stand up at the microphone or, whatever your thing is, the more often you try, the better chance you have at finding the good ideas, and certainly the better, it's likely that you'll get better at that thing that you're doing. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's a pretty good way to put it. I think that applies to a lot of different things as well. Just kind of wrapping it up here towards the end. There was a really good question that I think is a good way to kind of send things off, and it was Alyssa. I'm going to paraphrase because we don't have a ton of time, but Alyssa, music solutions manager for the Philippines. What advice or steps would you recommend for artists who want to start streaming their music process or just sharing that with the world? She said through Twitch, but just generally, like, what kind of advice would you give?
Well, I mean, it's got to be authentic to you. So, like I said, if you feel like you really have something to share with people and so it's something special and a point of view and it's authentic, in quotes, that's a very marketing kind of term.
No, but I get that. I hate saying that too, but I think it says a lot.
I don't know a better word.
Yeah, no, that's
there's very much like I think a lot of bands, I think a lot of musicians are so naturally like they want, what's the word? They want to make their stuff and put it out and have that instant gratification. They want to have the instant gratification, and there are times for that, and then there are times to hold certain things back. So I'd say one thing that especially young people could benefit from is taking a long look at, if the thing you are doing today becomes big, and it ends up being the thing you're doing for 20 years, how would you treat it? How would you treat it? Would you just throw everything out there on social media every day and like dump your songs off on SoundCloud so that everyone can have them, and there's no element of surprise, and there's no I mean, there is, but it's smaller, right? So I think that you got to have a bit of a career oriented way of looking at things too.
Sure.
And then in the last little bit, I would say to anybody who's just getting started off doing anything is don't be a jerk.
Ah, yes. Very sage advice. I can at least stand behind that one because I'm familiar with how that can improve your life and career generally.
It feels good sometimes to be a jerk. It really feels good, but you gotta not do it. You gotta say, you know what, I would have said this, and that would have felt great, but I didn't say that because that.
Yeah, do it up here, not with the mouth. All right. Well, thank you so much for jumping on here and chatting with me and answering audience questions. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for us. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thanks.